So now we get to hear from a very special man who knows a lot about being on the other side. He has actually been struck by lightning twice, and he has the most complete near-death experience on record. But most of all, he has a huge heart. Dannion Brinkley is a three-time international bestseller. He is the author of the New York Times bestseller Saved by the Light and At Peace in the Light. And you'll see him at many of the human potential conferences. And he does a lot of personal work with all kinds of nonprofit organizations. And he's just a really super guy. We know why they brought him back so many times. So we're so happy to have Dannion Brinkley. Hello, Dannion. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, Deborah, and thank you for having me.
And what can you tell us about your journey on the other side and why you came back and what this evening's about?
Well, what this evening is about is everybody celebrating the fact that on a full moon, on a Halloween, when death and departed loved ones and spirit and ghosts and hobgoblins and trick or treat and all those things come into play in a full moon. But first, I'd like to compliment what you and Scott have done and put together in this community and what you've done to create this place where people can come, open their hearts up, feel the safety of being with family and being with people who search for answers and who believe in the deep spiritual, mystical nature of each one of us. So what I come to say is this. Becoming 70 years old and going through one death experience and three near-death experiences, struck by lightning twice, open heart surgery, brain surgery, and open heart surgery, all the things, the combination of originally being struck by lightning, dead for 28 minutes, completely paralyzed for 6 days, partially paralyzed for 7 months, and it took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. But what I discovered in that 28 minutes was that nobody ever dies. It is a ridiculous concept to believe that you die. Why? You are a spiritual being more than you are a physical being. And let me show you why. The smallest known particle in physical matter is called a Planck sphere, a very orderly subatomic particle. And when you look at physical reality, everybody, the basic thing that we normally deal with is an atom, physical. Well, if you look at an atom under an electron microscope, it's 99.99996% empty space. And then if you look at the next component of physical matter in your body, it's called a molecule. And a molecule is made up of atoms. But if you take a molecule and you put it under an electron microscope, it's 99.99998% empty space. And then the next component in your physical body is a cell, which is made up of atoms and molecules to form cells. If you put a cell under an electron microscope, it's 99.99999% empty space. So in that empty space, which is what the Higgs boson particle proved to us in CERN, is your spiritual self, the true spiritual identity vibrating in an harmonic resonance in this plane, not in some far distant plane, not in some place called heaven, but here. And if you take 99.99999% of every cell in your body, then where are you really if you are not here? That's the question about tonight. You will never die. Never. It is impossible for a spiritual being to conceive of dying. It's insane. As to people that you want to connect to on the other side, They're always right there. It's just learning how to find that calm level of peace, like Larry was describing, and finding things that symbolize who they are, but in laughter. Watch this, everybody. You will see your entire life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama as you make that transition. You will watch yourself from a second person point of view as if you were your own best friend. And then you will literally become every person that you've ever encountered. And you will feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person. This will happen. And then there'll be a question. If God couldn't come today and God sent you in the life you just reviewed, what difference did you and God make? Now, when you take that tonight and Hail All Saints Eve in a full moon and you ask yourself that question, you begin to expand into the magnificent realms of a spiritual being, not some poor, lonely, depressed, suffering victim. A spiritual being has no capability of seeing itself as a victim. It is impossible to be a divine being so connected to this universe and a part of a divine flowing power that we call God or the divine or the intelligent divine power. How can you see that? So, whatever has happened, you have to start right here tonight. You are a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being, earned dimensions with dignity, direction, and purpose. The only thing that can ever go wrong in your life is you allow something to affect your dignity, which skews your direction and your purpose. This is the law, everybody. This is not maybe. This is not theoretical. This is it. This is how it works. How do I know? I've been dead so many times, it's ridiculous to think about it. But I can keep getting up from the dead. Why? It's about intention. Because when God said, or that divine force said, if God could not come today, or whatever you believe is divine force, and they sent you, then what difference did you and the divine make? I became a hospice volunteer because as I looked at what difference I could make being the meanest SOB, the biggest asshole you ever came in, big, bully, tough guy, the greatest thing I could do is be at the bedside of people going from this world to the next world, being afraid of all that garbage that religions and institutions and governments had taught them. I've been a hospice volunteer for 42 years. I've been at the bedside of more than 2,010 people going from this world to the next. 34,000 hours at the bedside, and I've been with 346 people taking their last breath. So I got a grip on death on this side, on going there, on being over there, and coming back. So tonight, you must start by locking in the fact that you will not die. And everyone you've ever loved and who's ever loved you did not die either. So the most important thing that you take into your mind, heart, and soul tonight is, why do you want to contact someone who made it home? It is your intention, everybody. It's why you do what you do, not what you do. These are the laws. And once you put those laws in as the reality that you will not die and that you're a divine and powerful spiritual being. So what I'm going to close with is this. Yeah, for everybody out there on this full moon, I have my fire log burning. I've set my candles and lit them. I put out my little altar so that I can stay focused in the divine things around me. You being a part of this show, everybody, it means that all of us collectively together are spiritually focusing in the divine nature of each other's love. So remember, it's always why, what your intention is, more than what it is. And pay attention to this. As a spiritual being, I'm going to give you the meaning of life. on this Hail of Saints Eve. Here's the meaning of life. You were chosen to come here. And once you were chosen, because there is nobody better than you to take on the 8 densities that becomes a physical being, to conceive as a physical being, even to feel pain and to feel emotional and stress, and still be chosen by the divine to be you. And then you pick consequences for which you come, and you look at opportunities to overcome. But watch this. If you wrote down on a piece of paper everything that you hold or believe that God is, or the divine is, or the mother goddess, or whatever you want to call that divine essence, and you wrote it down: compassionate, loving, caring, hopeful, protective. And then you turn around and think, how many times per day do you get a chance to be one of those things? All day, every day. So the meaning of life is to practice being a God in the midst of appearing to be physical. Now that's the law, everybody. That's not maybe. None of that. This is how it works. And once you put this into your thinking processes, you begin to expand. You begin to perceive things. You begin to know things in a higher level. And you sense the value of yourself as a spiritual being, practicing being a God, which could only have been an earned right. You would have earned a right to be here. So practicing being a God from this night on is the key to accessing levels of consciousness, moving through dimensional realities, and really taking a hold of who you are. And what I'd like to do is this too. I want everybody to stop for a couple of seconds and pay attention to your breathing. Breathe deep. Pull in the life force. Pull in the love. The same as that we're sending and protecting the people in Colorado in the fires. But you got to donate the power of your breath and the power of your love and the power of your heart as you breathe in. And when you breathe out, send safety and protection to those people, because you can never replace that physical crap that's gone. But you can empower them with the love to start over and to begin again and to recreate a new world as a divine spiritual being, because all of us this night have chosen to do this on Hail All Saints Eve. So we're all saints. On a full moon in 2020, when the world is changing. And the last thing to find out how really funny I am is get you a copy of Saved by the Light, a book I wrote 25 years ago. And I put in that book a vision I had in 1975. The battle for the souls of humankind would be fought in healthcare. I've been saying that, as Scott can tell you and Deborah can tell you, I've been saying that for 45 years. Well, we are there. So if you get saved by the light, go to chapter 5 and read box 12. And I will have described exactly where we are today. I even used the terms the virus, the vaccination, the so-called 060606 patent, all of this. It's in play today. So that means that tonight we're all on time. We're right where we're supposed to do. Focus on what we're supposed to be focused on, being who the hell we are as great, powerful, and mighty spiritual beings, practicing being a God together. So once again, I'm very proud, Deborah, of you and Scott and everybody that's on the air. I love you with all my heart. I appreciate each of you. And I thank you for these few moments I get a chance to celebrate in the joy of what you guys are creating.
Dannion, before you go, 2 stories. One is earlier, somebody wrote in the chat box that many, many years ago, she was at a bookstore and a book fell and hit her in the head. And she put it back, And it fell a second time and hit her in the head. There's a book called Saved by the Light by Dannion Brinkley. And she put that in the chat box. If she comes back, you can put your name in the chat box again. And I also want to share.
But Scott, it becomes imperative. There are 12 boxes that I wrote down about it. And if you look at the history, I missed the timing on some things because life is probable possibilities. Everything has probable possibilities of occurring and has a limited number of probable possibilities. Okay, so I missed some of the timing, but we sit at a precipice if we don't pull our love together. Not all the power and might, burning and robbing and all that, but coming together on a Saturday night, on a sacred time where it's trick or treat, and it's all those stories of the celebrations of the saints and the witches and all those things that brought us to the spiritual consciousness that we are, and put our love and our breath at work, that we breathe deep, that we hold that divine power, and then we let it go. And my last thing to tell everybody, nothing happens until the space between when you breathe in, you stop, and then you breathe out. When you feel those 8 sinus cavities, all those 8 sinus cavities, you breathed in all the divineness and everything there is, then it stops. You set an intention, and the divine sets an intention along with you, and you breathe out and take action. So for the rest of this evening, be so spiritually conscious of you breathing in and breathing out, and go get saved by the light and read chapter 5, box 12, and you will see how much fun is up next.
Thank you, Dannion. You know, I've known Dannion for a very long time. I first worked with him on a show called The Other Side back in 1994. But several years later, I did a story about him and his work in hospice. And so I went with my camera crew to the Long Beach VA hospital. And it was the ward of people dying. And there was a young man dying, young, probably in his early 30s, I'm guessing. And he was terrified of death. And we did a little pre-interview with him, and he was like, I don't want to die because when you die, it's all over. And I don't want to be all over. And Dannion came and he chatted with this young man for a little bit. And then Dannion said, can I just hold you and give you a hug and maybe show you what might happen? And this guy was kind of scared. He said, well, okay. And Dannion hugs him. And that hug lasted a long time. I don't know, 20, 25 minutes. And the camera is rolling this whole time, you know. Finally, Dannion pulls back, and this young man, tears are going down his face. He says, oh my God, I'm not afraid to die anymore. It's beautiful. There is a heaven. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And we captured all that on film and broadcast it. And I will remember that for the rest of my life.
Scott?
Yes, Dannion. Yeah.
It's called the synchronistic breathing technique. It's an advanced version of what I just said. I have no problems with heaven, you know, and I'd like to tell everybody one other thing. Nobody's going to hell, because if I didn't go to hell, you don't even have a chance at it. Okay, you can forget it. You got no chance. I was an asshole. Okay, so nobody's going to hell. That's a ridiculous thought too, unless you truly decide to. Because I had a lady in the audience one time. She says, Dannion, you know, she says, you know, you have an attitude problem. And she said, what about hell? What about hell? And I said, honey, they didn't bring it up, and I damn sure didn't bring it up. But if you want to know about hell, as soon as you get down the end of the tunnel and you see that being that comes to meet you, you start asking them, where's hell? And I'm sure somebody over there will accommodate you. But you have to remember, all that stuff is crazy. But listen, everybody, you're only a breath away. You come here and take a breath, and when you leave, you let a breath out. And if you place a deep spiritual value on your breath, you begin to control the reality that functions around you. And how can I say that? I have 4 times raised myself from the dead. And I'm talking about with no chance to live. And the last time I did that was 2 years ago, 4 days ago. 2 years ago. And I've gotten back up again, all because I pay attention to my breath and I pay attention to the value of the divinity that flows through each and every one of us. So in the synchronistic breathing technique, it is so easy to hold someone, set the intention, and as they breathe in, you breathe out. And as they breathe out, you breathe in, and you set up a pattern of the figure eight between them. And then you can pull them into your world. You know, so you have to make sure that your world is pure and focused and your intentions, your balancing is right, you're working in the right frequency, your toning is perfect, and you can pull them in through you into the divine space. And that's what I did. And that was in the AIDS ward. Remember in those days,
Yeah.
everybody was so terrified of AIDS. Well, I don't care. I'm going to hold them and I'm going to sneak them in a brownie and I'm going to call their mothers and I'm going to call their fathers and I'm going to cuss them out for not coming to see them. And, you know, I got thrown out of a lot of places doing that. But
I won't
always
tell
say,
those
well,
stories. I could tell
I
those
was
stories, but
I was like, well, wait a minute.
no,
What are they
I
going to
won't.
do?
I won't.
I
I
said,
won't.
well, what are they going to do? Kill me? That's a joke. So everybody, please, the rest of this night, breathe deep, empower yourself, and when you breathe out, send love to everybody else that's in this group, and then in turn, skip a beat and send love to everyone they know. This is the power of who we are. Breathe for those together as us as a family. They will feel you and you will feel them. Skip a beat and then breathe for those that they know and love. When you have the panoramic life review, everybody, you will know I was right. So why wait till then? Capitalize. I love everybody, and I thank you, Deborah and Scott, and everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dannion. We love you so much. We know you'll be back one way or the other.